It's October, and I like to get some seasonal recommendations in. This one, oh boy, Gothic. This is an 80s movie by director Ken Russell. It features Natasha Richardson, Gabriel Byrne, Julian Sands. It is um, it is a retelling of the famous ghost story swapping night between historical figures Mary Shelley, Percy Shelley, Lord Byron, and others. And it is a retelling of that on mushrooms. This is a really fascinating movie. And in many ways, it feels like a movie that wouldn't be made today, but not for any of those superficials. Oh, the wokerati wouldn't let you make it. No, 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 no. It's none of that. This is an exercise in atmosphere that I feel doesn't really get funded anymore. Because I'll tell you straight up, if you need your ghost stories or your supernatural tales to be, you know, coherent, give it a pass. It's not total nonsense. It's all very thematic. So it's not impossible to follow. But if you're looking for an A that happens, then B happens, then C happens, and here's why every part of that happens, if you need the comfort of that, this will not give it to you. This is about atmosphere. This is about mood. This is about tone. This is not about a narrative. And it succeeds at what it's doing incredibly well. It also has a lot of interesting touches because when it comes to things like the gore or the nudity, because there is a bit, while it's there, and one could argue it is at times gratuitous, it doesn't feel exploitative. It feels mood appropriate when and how it happens. This, boy, where do you even start with this thing? There isn't really a villain. Well, I guess you could argue Byron's kind of the villain because, I mean, it's Lord Byron. He's a dick. But our main point of sympathy certainly is Mary, which I think makes a lot of sense. But as we get to know our core 5 characters and get to watch them descend into madness feels like too generic a term and also not fully appropriate as we see them be tormented by themselves and each other. It feels like sinking in to a ghost story that has no answers. Like, this is all weird stuff. This is ghostly stuff. This is supernatural stuff, which means we don't know what or why. Like, that's the proper nature of supernaturalness. You don't know what it is. That's kind of the point. But most supernatural stories will offer you an explanation. This doesn't really. I'll tell you what, it's a heck of a lot more gripping a retelling of that night than Haunting of Villa Diodati is, even setting aside my massive problems with that Doctor Who story. But one of the other ways, aside from just being more or less an exercise in atmosphere, way more than a narrative, like, good luck pitching anything like this to financiers today. Basically answering every question about the narrative, like, well, why does that happen with a hand wave and it doesn't matter? Because it doesn't. It doesn't matter why that happens. It doesn't matter why most of this happens. It does. And then these people try to deal with it, try to cope with it, or break from it, depending on what it is and who they are. And beyond that, though, Ken Russell, I got to give him so much credit. He does an amazing job at shooting these kinds of spaces, these large, old, antique places, and just making them feel grand. One of the things I found myself thinking as I watched this with my partner was that I can't remember the last time I've seen a movie that does so much to show off the space. What it feels like so many things being made in the last decade or so do is you get your big establishing shots of an area, of a landscape, of whatever. But then when characters start interacting, it's all medium shots and close-ups. All of it. That's what it really feels like has become overly standardized. Whereas this, so many shots, so many scenes happen with the characters taking up a small portion of these gigantic rooms and just letting that framing do a lot of the storytelling, making them seem small and vulnerable just because of how big the space is, and establishing that over, like, be sure we get full coverage. All right, let's get this person's medium shot. Screw that. We can hear them okay. We can make out the dialogue. We don't need to get right in their face. We'll get in their face when we need to see their face to get their expression. If we don't need that right now, make them small. Make them small in the space. Make them small in the room. And it just doesn't seem to happen very much anymore. And it was really eye-opening as a visual experience, watching this just sink further into what the title is, Gothic. This Gothic, oppressive almost at times atmosphere that permeates this entire film from start to finish. The performances are all really good, by the way. These actors get asked to do some odd stuff. Miriam Sear, I think I'm saying that right, and Timothy Small being the other two that I haven't already mentioned. They get asked to push themselves pretty well. It's funny. The very end of the movie, this isn't really a spoiler. The very end of the movie kind of covers what happened to each of them after. And for all that they went through, it seems oddly fitting that it would be the women who would outlive the men following, these experiences in a night like this. And unlike, again, say something like Haunting of Villa Diodati, while there are nods and moments that feel like a little bit of a nod towards Frankenstein, the story that Mary Shelley would ultimately write off the back of the real-life version of this night, not the fictional one, it's not doing what Haunting of Villa Diodati did, which is feel like it is injecting these ideas into her to the point that she barely came up with these things with her own imagination. It kind of actually happened to her. That's not really what's going on here. Because what it feels like much more is you see the seeds planted that would bring that about. You see topics get brought up that are like, okay, a little bit. You can see how she would run with that later. But a lot of it also is stuff that she says, her expressions, her ideas, her thoughts about what it is she's experiencing. You see, like, you're going to refine that thought into that book that we all know. And I was going to say know and love. Like, we should, if you've never read Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, you should, if only for the experience of it. Like, it is a really fascinating piece of writing, especially for when it was made. But if you want something for this time of year that is dark and atmospheric and tense, but doesn't really care if you understand its plot, if you're either okay with that or if you kind of like it, I recommend this really highly. This is a masterful exercise in Gothic atmosphere. And I really enjoyed it. It's a lot. It is a lot. But it's really good. Gothic. Have you seen it? What did you think about it? Whatever your thoughts are, drop something down in the comments. And let's talk about it. Patreon is what pays my bills. And also how I was actually commissioned to take a look at this particular movie. But, any amount you can help me out there is of great assistance. Don't worry too much about it, though. We take a relaxed attitude on here, so you can just come on back next time you need a break. And now to thank my highest supporting patrons. Robin Moore, Zubin Lutfula, Goddess Elida, Welsh Wrestling Geeks, Oliver B., Melinda Pedersen, Tarak, the thing that goes doink in the anime, Gene Foray, Movie Turtle, Ulrich Bogdan, Loki Eris, Melinda Walters, Auntie Kate 808, Becky Sparks, Frenobulax the Poodle, Tracy Scrabbit, Angry Casperel, Dave Hall, Quite Bearish, Rosalind Bennett, Adam R. D.L. Taylor, Palba Rabajoggle, Mira G, and Sir Didymus is my favorite. If you're wondering about this little guy, this is Nymph. He's new. Don't worry, the other two are fine. He's just not fully socialized with them yet. You'll see them all together soon. Won't they? I say what?